Hello everyone. A good number of people who follow my live streams have hopped into Warframe over the past couple years as I've played it casually between my Elder Scrolls, Fallout, and other general live streams on Twitch. Anyway, as a result of all these new people hopping into the game, I tend to get the same questions over and over. Now, Digital Extremes, despite being a well-beloved company by a very large community, they absolutely, utterly fail at conveying information to players in a decent way. If you take away nothing else from this video, if you stop watching right now, take this single recommendation. If you're new to the game, look things up. Check the wiki, videos. But tons and tons of people tell me they quit because they couldn't figure things out. So as per usual, these guides, in part or in whole, are subject to change over time, as Warframe is a vastly different game now than it was a couple years ago, and it will probably be vastly different a couple years from now than it is at this very moment. Obviously, if you are a veteran to Warframe, you really have no reason to be watching this in the first place. But the reason I created this video is Warframe is one of my favorite online co-op games of all time, but the average player, based on the feedback I get, tends to hit a brick wall attempting to delve into it. So I'll be addressing Warframe in steps. I'll have timecode links both in a pinned comment and the video description, so take your pick. Because this is going to be a rather large video, and so skipping to the information based on labels, probably a good idea. So, introduction. In this video, we're going to be addressing the major things you need to know to get into and excel at Warframe, going all the way up until the current end game. Understanding that the end game goalpost is always moving, so this guide will become irrelevant eventually. Now, Warframe is a third-person shooter and a hack-and-slash horde-slaying game with multiple game modes. Although it can be played solo, a good chunk of the game's fun is enhanced by playing it as it was meant to be played in 4-player co-op. It has a cinematic story with a plot, although the majority of that story is gated behind roughly 15 to 60 hours of raw gameplay, depending on your speed and whether you have friends helping you. Your character's abilities and arsenal will expand over the course of that story. So the game has a lot of systems that you won't be aware of in the beginning, nor will you be aware of until you've progressed far enough. One of the most frequent adjectives used to describe Warframe is grindy. And many players have asked me, is the grind worth it? But that question itself is loaded with the concept that the grind itself exists as a barrier to a reward, when in fact the grindy gameplay itself is the reward. If you're not having fun with the grindy gameplay, give up now because it's only going to get worse. The combat, movement system, and the core gameplay loop itself, while not difficult, is extremely fun and dynamic. Within the first few hours of the game, you'll get a sense of whether you enjoy the game for the game, or whether you're just trying to get over the next grind hurdle. And if all you're trying to do is get over the next grind hurdle and you're not having fun, quit the game. But let's go to the first hurdle, which is creating your account. An important thing to know about Warframe is it's a free-to-play game. So it does employ many free-to-play game mechanics in order to monetize itself. Things like leveling speed or resource gathering speed can have boosters applied to them via premium currency known as platinum. We'll get into how to acquire platinum currency without actually paying for it later on, as platinum does not need to be purchased by every single player looking to obtain these premium features. It is entirely possible to enjoy the vast majority of Warframe without spending a penny. Now, I did mention experience boosters because creating an account under someone else's referral link will give you a 7-day affinity booster. Affinity is basically experience points that you earn. As you kill things, complete objectives, and complete missions, you will earn affinity that levels up not only your Warframe, but your weapons, your pets, and everything else that you use. We'll get into that a little more later, but for your convenience, I'll put my referral link below, but really anyone's will work. So that 7-day affinity booster from the referral link will double your leveling speed for 7 days, which isn't actually that important, but every little bit helps, especially when you're just starting out. Regardless of whose link you use, nobody to my knowledge is getting paid real-life money for using their link, just in-game perks. If you've already created an account by this point, missing out on the affinity booster isn't really that big a deal unless you haven't finished the tutorial yet, in which case make a new account. But if you have finished the tutorial, if you've done that whole experience already, don't bother. It was worth mentioning for a smoother level experience, if nothing else. Now, when starting Warframe, you'll be prompted to pick a Warframe to start with. Warframes are like character classes, each class having 4 abilities and at least 1 passive. Some Warframes actually having an alternate resource pool or some kind of quirk to them. Your playstyle will vary greatly depending on which Warframe you are playing as at the time. However, remember, you can bring any combination of equipment along with your Warframe, so the customization is nearly endless, and we'll get into equipment a little bit later. If properly built, however, none of the 3 starter Warframes are bad, and each excels at a different function later in the game. Each Warframe has its trade-offs, and if I had to pick just one to start out with, it would be Excalibur. Excalibur has 2 standout abilities that are going to make your overall experience better. The number 2 ability of Excalibur is Radio Blind, which will allow you to crowd control enemies, so you won't have to worry about getting shot while you take them down. In fact, because they're blind, you'll be able to use execution moves on them to do greatly enhanced damage beyond your normal capabilities. The other standout ability Excalibur has is his number 4 ability, the Exalted Blade, which will be powerful leading through your entire progression on the star map. We'll go over builds later, but here's an example of an Excalibur during a level 35 mission. As you can see, the Exalted Blade mops up enemies with ease, and an occasional Radio Blind prevents enemies from attacking. Having reliable crowd control and damage dealing capabilities right out the gate means you will have the smoothest experience prior to acquiring other Warframes to radically change up your playstyle. And believe me, there are many, many Warframes with many, many playstyles across the entirety of the game. However, I would advise not spending too many resources into Excalibur, as you will receive a grind-free direct upgrade and replacement to Excalibur during your late game progression. Again, we'll discuss what kind of resources you spend to upgrade your frames later. Just something to keep in mind. While it is entirely possible to pick one of the other 2 starters, in fact, I picked Volt myself on my main account, for instance, having replayed the progression path a couple times to get footage and re-examine the game, I can confirm that Excalibur makes it the smoothest by far and is the best new player choice. Picking Excalibur will not permanently lock you out of the other 2 Warframes, as you will be able to build them with drops you get from other bosses later. Now, that was all just picking your starting Warframe. Can you believe that? Once you get into the game itself, it'll walk you through the tutorial in a series of missions. This is called Vor's Prize. Now that you're able to move around the environment, let's take a moment and discuss the advanced movement system. My recommendations in this area will be based around a mouse and keyboard setup. If you want to use a controller, you're free to, although aiming is superior with a mouse. And again, this is how I set up my Warframe. You may want to use a completely different keyboard layout. Use what works for you. However, the default movement for Warframe is WASD, with numbers 1 through 4 being your Warframe powers, and 5 being a universal power that is unlocked later in the story progression. The default button for duck is Control, but if you're going to be ducking a lot, for reasons I will explain in a moment, and for most people, depending on the size of your hand and other factors, curling your pinky finger down to Control while your index, ring, and middle fingers are pressing WASD will eventually stress your pinky finger, potentially causing repetitive stress injury. Therefore, I recommend swapping duck from Control to Shift in the options menu for Keybinds, allowing the pinky finger to rest naturally on the duck button. Shift. Now, in Warframe, you'll be performing a move known as a bullet jump frequently. A bullet jump is accomplished by ducking, then looking either straight up or at an upward angle in the direction you wish to go, and then hitting jump while ducking. Jump is by default bound to spacebar, and I think it's good where it is. Use your thumb to hit it. Bullet jumps can be chained immediately upon landing again, allowing flowing, rapid movement diagonally, making you a ninja, specifically a space ninja. Since you will be tapping duck almost constantly, you can see how having the pinky finger resting naturally on shift is preferable. Now, during the initial spin phase of a bullet jump, you get 60% damage reduction. So it has a purpose against unavoidable damage like hit scan weapons or, say, an explosive you barely managed to get out of the way of in time, but you're still getting hit by the blast. If you're doing a bullet jump, the very beginning of the bullet jump, that initial spin, 60% damage reduction. After the peak of the bullet jump, you can actually hold the right mouse button, which will aim, and trigger a mid-air aim glide to give you some distance as well as let you aim and shoot your weapon. Next, we have the dodge roll. Like the bullet jump, the dodge roll also confers 60% damage reduction during the roll. I recommend rebinding sprint/roll to Q. The reasoning for that is Q and W are right next to one another. W for forward, and while you're sprinting, you're going to be holding forward. So it makes sense to be able to just hold those buttons naturally with your middle and ring fingers. Now, right after performing a bullet jump, either during or instead of an aim glide, you can tap your sprint roll key to perform a mid-air roll. By chaining bullet jumps and dodge rolls, you can not only make your movement flow far more naturally and far faster than any other shooter out there, but during a majority of these maneuvers, you'll be getting 60% damage reduction. Practice chaining these movement options together for an extreme level clear speed, especially if exterminating the entire map isn't your purpose. You can zoom by unnecessary enemies. Note that the Q button, gear wheel, will be unbound as a result. I recommend rebinding this to G for gear. It's very easy to remember. And that in turn will unbind place marker, what I call tag. So I just bind place marker to T for tag. These two buttons can be operated with your index finger, along with E for melee, R for reload, and F for switch weapon. It's up to you how you want to use X or C, X for interact, C for voice chat. However, definitely practice doing aim glides and things like that, and then using your melee weapon by combining bullet jumps, dodge rolls, ground slams with melee weapons, and more dodge rolls and bullet jumps. That pretty much covers keybinds for a far more efficient solution over the standard keybinds. As usual, these are just suggestions, so feel free to customize them as you see fit. So back to the tutorial. In Vor's Prize, the upgrades the missions provide you will be known as flawed mods, specifically. MK1 weapons that you pick up during the first mission and flawed mods are inferior to all other equipment in the game that you'll be getting later. They just exist to get you introduced to the game mechanics and give you a baseline understanding of what it means to upgrade. As soon as possible, you want to replace them. You will notice once you do get your upgrade panel in the tutorial that you'll see a capacity on your Warframe. That capacity will go up as you level your Warframe up to a limit of 30 levels. Weapons work the same way. The overall capacity can be doubled once per equipment piece by spending an item called an Orokin Reactor for Warframes or an Orokin Catalyst for weapons. You'll be able to earn these rarely through limited time events such as invasions, alerts, or they can be purchased through the brand new Nightwave system, which is a series of daily and weekly objectives you can do. Every card or mod in your upgrade system has a number next to it, which is its cost. Upgrading the mod, making it stronger, will increase its cost. Each mod will have a symbol next to their cost. If the slot on the Warframe or weapon matches that symbol, it will cost half of the capacity. There is an item known as a forma, which is able to be consumed to set the symbol for that slot at the cost of resetting the maxed item back to level 0, where it has to be leveled over. This is the grind we're talking about. However, once you get leveling down, you can do it in just a couple minutes, really. Now, formas are commonly earned through the Relic system, which we'll talk about later. Now, remember that footage of my Excalibur killing level 35 enemies? Here's a look at that Excalibur's mod loadout. Notice he does have an Orokin reactor installed, but that's only the default mod slots, meaning no formas have been applied to this build. But you can create much, much more powerful builds than anything else using forma. These mods are earned through various missions out on the star chart, and also bounties in the open world zone on Earth, Plains of Eidolon, which you will have access to almost immediately after finishing the tutorial. There are other ways to earn mods as well, and we'll go over some of them later. So with most Warframes, the capacity will equal the level of the Warframe. And if you have an Orokin reactor or catalyst installed, it will be double that. Now, you can usually get additional points in capacity by placing either an aura or a stance mod. Auras for Warframes and stance mods for melee weapons. In this case, we apply Corrosive Projection as an aura, and you can see that the additional 7 points have been applied to the capacity. If we were to polarize this slot to be the dash symbol, then we would get double capacity. It would be 14 additional points. So auras are pretty vital when leveling up a Warframe. You can earn auras through specific alerts or Nightwave sales. There are occasionally other enemies that will drop specific auras as well. Most Warframes are going to need some sort of health increase, like Vitality for survivability. You'll notice on this chart here that there are 4 primary stats: duration, efficiency, range, and strength. Now, if we mouse over the radial blind ability here, you can see where duration has boosted it. If we take off continuity and we look at duration, it's 15 seconds. Throw continuity back on, and it's 19.5. Now you can see we've applied Intensify for strength, Streamline for efficiency, and Stretch for range. And you can see how it's influenced all the aspects of the Warframe's powers. Note that some Warframes will have abilities that benefit in absolutely no way from a specific stat. And not all of these abilities are intuitive. In fact, many of them are completely counterintuitive to how the stats apply to the Warframe's powers. In addition to the standard mods you will get, there are set mods, such as the Augur set, which you'll get from the Plains of Eidolon, which can further enhance things like duration and range. The general rule is the more powerful the mods, the more expensive they are. So you'll notice that replacing continuity with the primed continuity variant we get off of Barrow-Katir, and replacing Intensify with an Umbral version, which is also more powerful, renders our capacity pretty much killed. So if I wanted to, say, add flow to get more energy, I wouldn't be able to do that because I'm out of capacity. However, if we go over to actions and we were to hit polarization, we are able to apply a forma. Now, this forma will match one of the symbols on the mods, and by doing that, it will make the mod cost half its normal, thereby letting us fit more things into the Warframe. We can also change the aura slot to fit the preferred aura we want to use, which will double the capacity we gain. Although not true of all Warframes and all specialized builds of Warframes, a generalized build that increases your health, shields, and makes sure that all of your primary stats are above 100% should give you an overall positive experience. Now, eventually, you will be able to get and use corrupted mods to decrease one stat but increase another, are for making specific builds which will greatly enhance one of a Warframe's powers, usually at the cost of damaging all of the others. For example, this mod, Transient Fortitude, can greatly increase your ability's strength. beyond which just Intensify and Augur Secrets mods could possibly do. However, understanding that greatly increasing that strength is going to come at the cost of duration, meaning that if you have too low a duration, abilities like Radial Blind are going to suffer because enemies aren't going to stay blinded for as long. Likewise, Narrow-Minded may reduce the range of your abilities, but in turn greatly increase the duration, at which point, yes, enemies will stay blinded for a long time, but the radius by which the enemies will be affected is greatly reduced. Understanding what combinations of these mods work together in order to create the ideal loadout for the specific Warframe you're using is the key to this system. And with most players, until they've got a grasp for the system themselves, they should generally stick to copying other people's builds, at least in the very beginning, and then experimenting on their own later. There is a Warframe builder website on the internet which will help you find and set up builds. But I've found the most useful resources are both YouTube videos and forum posts on the Warframe official forums. Now, for the sake of showing you how to build a ranged weapon, I've gone ahead and picked up a Bratton Prime, added an Orokin reactor, and formatted it 6 times. So there are polarity slots on it. Now you'll notice that Bratton Prime has a critical chance of 12 and a status chance of 16. You can build a weapon to be either a status weapon, a crit weapon, or kind of a combination of both. It's very rare to get weapons where you can completely master it for both crit and status, and those are usually, but not always, nerfed. In the case of modding primary weapons, the most useful stats are usually direct damage, followed by multi-shot, followed by elemental damage mods. And this is important because you need to figure out whether you're going to be building a crit-based weapon or a status-based weapon. Even though the stats of this weapon don't really support it, let's just assume for a moment that we're going to build this weapon for crit, in which case we're going to apply 2 standard elemental damage mods. The standard elemental damage mods bring more damage. However, let's just say for a moment that instead we were going to build this for status. In that case, we'd put on these mods, which are status-based mods. They don't give you as much damage, but they increase the status chance for the weapon. All types of damage in the game have some sort of status effect that can be triggered based on the weapon's status chance. The most popular status in the game currently is corrosive. Corrosive damage is created by combining electricity and toxin. The reason corrosive is so popular is it does bonus damage against one specific enemy type, the heavily armored Grineer. In addition to doing that extra damage, when the status procs, it will permanently strip off a little bit of the armor from that particular target. Armor, of course, acts as a constant source of damage reduction, and without it, you are able to more efficiently hurt your enemies. Armor can really be the difference between killing an enemy in a single hit or killing them in 20 or 30 hits, depending on the extreme amount of armor the target may or may not have. There are Warframe abilities which are good at stripping armor, but there are also enemies that don't use armor at all. For example, the infested enemies use extremely high health pools. Against them, you would want to use either heat damage to obviously burn the infestation away, or most likely gas, which will act directly on their health. Gas damage can be created by combining heat and toxin. There are plenty of other damage types that can be effective against other enemies, and there are specialized circumstances and boss fights where certain damage types are more effective than others, or certain situations where you are required to rotate through damage types, in which case you want to mod each of your weapons differently. This is an example of a fairly absurd weapon that is built around status. As you can see, the status chance is at 100%. What this means is The weapon has 100% chance to apply puncture / impact, blast, corrosive, or viral with each hit, noting that the Clashing Forest style will apply those procs pretty frequently. Most of that information is irrelevant to this. All you really need to know is that this weapon has been specifically built around applying status. It's what people call a status stick. An enemy that's hit by the viral proc will have its health halved for a limited period of time, effectively causing any attacks to hit it during that time to do double damage. We already went over corrosive, it's armor stripping, and blast will knock down enemies that are hit by it, which is important because it's pretty much crowd control. But then there are mods that take advantage of status effects, like Condition Overload, which increases your melee damage per status type, affecting the target. Thus, this weapon may not do a whole lot of damage in the beginning, but its damage ramps up rapidly. Now, here's an example of a crit-based weapon. This is a secondary weapon known as a kit gun that you were able to build custom from Fortuna. You'll immediately notice the critical chance of 100.5. Now, critical chance can go over 100%. There are multiple levels of crits. So what this weapon does is it has a 100% chance to crit with a 0.5% chance to do a double crit. You'll notice mods like Target Cracker or Pistol Gambit will increase the critical damage and critical chance, respectively. The general rule is that large criticals will see you through 99% of the game. And once you start doing absurdly high-level content, in-the-game content, then status tends to become the preferable route later. When you can't just make your numbers high enough all the time, and you want some utility, that's really what the status is for, and that's why it excels in the end game. Now, once you finish Vor's Prize Quest, you should have earned enough experience points leveling your weapons and Warframe to take the Mastery Rank test. Mastery Ranks are a measure of how much of the game you've done on your account. More powerful enhancements, weapons, and harder activities are gated behind Mastery Ranks. You can take the Mastery Rank challenge anytime you want, and it's very unlikely that you'll fail the first 3 tests. That said, each subsequent test gets harder, and if you fail a test, you'll have to wait until the following day to reattempt it. If you're unsure about your ability to complete a Mastery Rank test, you can go to a relay, they are visible on the star map, and travel to Cephalon Cimerus's room, either physically or by hitting escape, clicking fast travel, and clicking Cephalon Cimerus. As soon as you get into his room, make a right turn and you'll notice alcoves going up a set of stairs. Each alcove is a Mastery Rank test. You can practice the test there as much as you want without using up your 1 attempt per day. And then when you feel you're ready, you can hit qualify for it. You will earn Mastery Rank experience by leveling up an item once. Once that weapon, Warframe, pet, or other piece of equipment has been maxed out, a symbol will appear next to it that it has been mastered. You will also see that same item marked with the same symbol on your profile to indicate that it's been mastered. Releveling a specific weapon by buying a new one, building a new one, or applying a forma and then releveling it, none of these things will have any effect on your Mastery Rank. This system is designed to encourage you to try out and fully level every piece of equipment in the game. So while you may be tempted to throw away your inferior MK1 Bratton for a superior regular Bratton, or throw away your regular Bratton for a superior Bratton Prime, it's important to finish leveling the previous equipment before ditching it, so that you get all of the experience points. Keep in mind there are specific pieces of equipment like the Broken Staff, Paracesis, and certain Warframes that are obtained by quests or limited time events that once sold can never be picked up again. Sometimes it's worthwhile to hold on to these items even after you've finished leveling them, especially if you're a collector. Now, if leveling your mastery rank quickly does become important to you, I recommend visiting the market and clicking the box that says Show Blueprints Only. This will allow you to view which weapons that, while you can outright buy for platinum, you can also buy a blueprint for using in-game credits and craft yourself. By crafting, leveling, and in most cases discarding each weapon that you don't see yourself using in the foreseeable future, your mastery rank will go up quite quickly. Now, finishing Vor's Prize and getting that first mastery rank, I'd recommend doing some normal missions on Earth. And when you feel up to a minor challenge, head over to Sorties and talk to Kanzu and get the bounty from him called Prove Yourself. This will send you to the Plains of Eidolon, the open world zone for Sorties Earth. This is a short mission that will get you to understand how bounties function in the open world plains zone. Once this is complete, you'll be able to do normal bounties from Kanzu, and those will give you experience points, plains resources, particularly special mods that can only be gotten on the plains, and some more basic stuff as well. It's recommended, while you're fairly new to the game, to take advantage of public groups to get these done easily while you're still leveling your stuff up. One thing to know about the plains is it has a day-night cycle, 100 minutes for daytime, 50 minutes for nighttime. During the day, it's bounties as usual, but at night, creatures come out that can't be killed until you've progressed further in the game's story. Remember that number 5 power I was talking about? Yeah, that. So, in addition to Kanzu's bounty board, Proving Yourself will unlock a dialogue option with Kanzu that will start Saya's Vigil quest, which will walk you through a tutorial for the Codex Scanner. And completing the quest will give you the Gara Warframe blueprint. Gara's other parts can be gotten through Kanzu's bounties. Gara is my most used Warframe by far. If you want to know why, I'd refer you to my Gara is Best Girl video for details on the build, the playstyle, and so on. But suffice it to say that properly built and played, she's tanky, she's great at defending targets, and she can stack millions of damage up. And that's all in the same build. Whether you decide to just farm the plains or regular missions, you'll quickly reach a point where you'll notice the Venus Junction at the bottom of the Earth section of the star chart. Junctions are your portals to other planets. They're called solar rails. If you mouse over the junction, it will give you a list of challenges. This is the game's way of making sure you understand the game's systems prior to moving on to the next planet. The Venus Junction will require you to upgrade a mod to level 4. I would honestly recommend leveling Redirection to level 4 and applying it to your Warframe. Vitality will become better later, but for now, Redirection. Once you've completed all of the Junction's challenges, you'll be able to enter the Junction itself and fight a boss. Defeating that boss will allow you to activate the Junction and unlock the next planet. Venus contains its own open world zone, which you'll access through a town called Fortuna. This open world zone's proper name is Orb Vallis. Fortuna does have its own quest line, and it will unlock a vehicle type known as the K-Drive, which is a hoverboard that you can use in both open world zones, the Plains of Eidolon in Sorties and Orb Vallis in Fortuna. Boosting forward on the K-Drive is a lot faster than running on the ground. Again, regardless of if you decide to stop and spend some time doing Sorties or Fortuna open world content, the next stop on the star chart is Mercury. Provided you finish up Mercury, you can return to Earth and go to the top junction this time, to Mars. Finishing the Mars junction will give you access to a quest known as the Arcwing, which will allow you to participate in space combat. Once you've finished the Arcwing questline, you'll be able to build an Arcwing launcher using resources from the Sorties open world zone. And once assigned to your gear wheel, the Arcwing can also be used in open world zones to fly around, not just Arcwing missions. The Arcwing is the superior choice, getting you over terrain that the K-Drive would struggle. The Arcwing just flies over it. Now, from Mars onward, in theory, you should have built up some momentum by this point as far as your build and playstyle go. Never be afraid to backtrack to one of the open world zones or ask for help in region or recruiting chat for one of the missions. You'll have multiple opportunities going through the next few planets to pick up new warframes and weapons. There are certain weapons and warframes you can only craft by replicating blueprints from a clan dojo lab. So participating in the clan system is highly encouraged. Although there is nothing stopping you from creating your own clan, being the only member of it, making your own dojo. In terms of things I'd recommend you pick up, Venus's boss, the Jackal, has the parts for the Rhino Warframe, a tank Warframe who uses an ability called Iron Skin, acting as a second health bar, and granting him immunity to all status effects while Iron Skin is active. Built correctly, he can also buff his own damage and party members' damage. Built differently, he's great at crowd control. There's a lot of flexibility in how you build Rhino. Now, if for some reason you did not pick Excalibur at the beginning of the game, you can get his parts from the Mars boss. They used to drop on Pluto. They've been changed to drop on Mars to be more newbie friendly. Eventually, however, you are going to run into the limitations of Warframe and weapon slots. So here's where we start talking about the fact that this is a free-to-play game with a premium currency known as Platinum. When you create an account, you will get 50 Platinum for free. The recommendation is either to spend that Platinum on a Warframe slot for 20 and 2 weapon slots for 12 each, or get a Warframe slot and an Orokin reactor for your Excalibur. Note that while it's been theorized you will be able to earn a Warframe and 2 weapon slots moving forward once per Nightwave series, that's every 10 weeks or so, it is confirmed, however, that you can spend Nightwave credits on Orokin reactors reliably, making the slots more valuable. Again, in theory, a new player, especially one who's looking to collect many Warframes and weapons, they're probably going to get more value out of the slots than they are the reactor in the beginning of the game. But at the end of the day, it's up to you. If you're looking to have as many Warframes and weapons as you want, you're going to have to spend Platinum. There are also other types of cosmetics, like premium skins, that are only obtainable via Platinum and cannot be purchased for in-game credits or gotten through events. So knowing that fact, if you really don't want to spend any money playing Warframe, you can get Platinum by trading with other players. As you do missions in Warframe, you will earn Void Relics. When you reach a certain point in your progression path, you will begin to be able to do Void Fissures to unlock these relics. Think of each relic like a loot box, although this kind of loot box can only be opened by playing the game. Each relic has a list of things that it can have inside, and by cracking the relic, you can get one of those items. At Mastery Rank 2, you will unlock Trading. If you go to either in-game trade chat or a website such as warframe.market, you can find lots of people who want to buy certain things for Platinum. You can even list things that you want to sell for Platinum, and by getting loot that other players want, you can trade that loot for Platinum. It's that simple. In some cases, with Arcanes we'll talk about later, thousands of Platinum. That's how players are able to buy premium skins, Warframe and weapon slots, boosters, and other Platinum-based items without spending any money at all. For those who are not looking to 100% free play the game, there are occasional sales when you log in. You will get a daily login reward, which is usually some pitiful resource, but every once in a while, it will be a sale, ranging from 25 to 75% off Platinum, meaning those who wait can get a damn reasonable price for Platinum. But like any other free-to-play game, the majority of the game's profits come from a small portion of the population. So if this were a competitive game and not a co-op game, the sale of weapons and Warframes for Platinum would most certainly make this pay to win, wouldn't it? Even so, the label cash grab is frequently attributed to Warframe by people who do not want to grind out these weapons. Since almost everything is obtainable via Platinum, they look at the Platinum prices and go, this is pay to win garbage. What keeps Warframe in check, though, is that the majority of the Warframes and weapons that you could buy are kind of trash on their own. What makes them good are the mods, those cards we saw earlier, and the rarer ones are obtained by certain activities and can't be outright purchased. At the end of the day, every free-to-play game and every franchise has its own standards and expectations. If this monetization were in an Elder Scrolls game, something like what we call the game Blades, we'd call it pay-to-win garbage. But the way Warframe is built, it doesn't feel like they're selling power at all. And I'd argue that's a good thing. No matter how you look at it, however, Warframe is a live service with all the baggage that brings. A free-to-play game with all the baggage that brings. So now that I've addressed the free-to-play crowd, and also those looking to play on the cheap, but not free, I do know some folks out there do have money and are not stingy about spending it on their own enjoyment. So, if you were to go dolphin or whale on this game, what would I recommend you buy right out of the gate to get your best value proposition? Well, let's say you want to look at this game like purchasing a normal game. You don't mind spending some money up front. They have these packages called Prime Access, which I honestly suspect is this company's main source of income. For a player who likes what they see and knows the purchase is not refundable, because oh boy, I would recommend buying the current low, mid, or high tier Prime Access packages that are going on right now, whenever you're watching this video. What is advertised in these packages is always the most recently released Prime weapons for the low tier, Warframe and Prime weapons for the mid tier, or Warframe weapons and accessories for the high tier. The primes change roughly every 3 months, but that's not really why you want to buy it. Just having a single primed Warframe isn't really why you're making this purchase. You see on the low, mid, and high tiers, you get about 1,050, 2,600, and 3,990 platinum respectively with each package. That obviously is subject to change with each package, so look before you buy. But that's really why you'd want to buy it. Just discounted platinum right off the bat. And the first thing you'd want to do with that platinum is to pick up an Inaros Warframe. He is the mummy put into Warframe form. He's a tank who eats other people to restore his health. Now, every couple weeks, there's a ghoul plague that goes around the Cetus open world area. Do it until you earn a Hunter Adrenaline, or buy a Hunter Adrenaline off another player. Stick that on your Inaros, and now, damage he takes gives him energy. Energy he can use to eat more people to get more health back. You see the cycle, right? Now, if you want to make him even more ridiculous, there's an augment for him called Negation Swarm. If you get that, his Scarab Armor makes him immune to status effects, similar to how Rhino's Iron Skin works. And for those of you who don't know, any kind of knockbacks, staggers, and knockdowns are pretty much all status effects. So if all things work out, you can just run through a laser fence and not care. That's pretty awesome, isn't it? It normally requires that you're pretty high up in a syndicate, but you can purchase it from other players. Next thing I suggest you buy with Platinum, if you are going the whale route, is an Avara, who is indisputably the best stealth Warframe you can get your hands on. If you get her Infiltrate mod, most likely from another player, or from a syndicate if you work your way up, you'll be able to walk through scanners, these laser beams that are supposed to detect you, with ease, while invisible. You just walk through them. This trivializes the otherwise steep learning curve of spy missions. Based on current prices, again subject to change, those two Warframes will run you 550 platinum. But once you've either grinded or traded for the right mods, your overall experience will be smooth as ice. If you really want a snazzy weapon, go for the Hunhouse gift package, which will get you War, a giant sword that's really, really cool. The closest thing to it is Galantine, which is locked behind Mastery Rank 3. Hunhouse gift can be gotten, of course, right at the start of the game. Although if you do grind your way to Mastery Rank 3, Galantine can be crafted for trivial resources. It is an easy craft. So I'll leave it up to you what you want to do. Do you want that instant gratification with your dolphin or whale money or not? If not, I'd recommend instead picking up some Warframe and weapon slots. You can always use more of those. Obviously more weapon slots than Warframe slots because there's a limited amount of Warframes in the game and there are tons and tons of weapons. If you have any platinum left after that, I'd get some Forma 3 packs, an Affinity Booster, Orokin Reactor Catalyst, you know, the basic things to upgrade you, but you will be able to earn all of that in-game. It's all about instant gratification or not. Use your platinum responsibly. Just get Warframe slots and weapon slots. and you will have a better overall experience when something does come along that you really, really want. But again, that's just for the dolphins and whales out there who really want the early game experience to be premium. Reality is that once you reach the end game, the only thing a premium player is going to have over a non-premium player is cosmetics. You are probably much, much better off just free to playing the game. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the brand new player. The game is undoubtedly smoother and more fun with friends, but that can be said about pretty much any well-designed online game these days. There are folks out there who will evangelize the solo lifestyle, and if it suits them, fine, but there's a reason this game is multiplayer by default. From this point on, the player should progress through the planetary progression, from planet to junction to planet to junction, progressing to Uranus, where all of a sudden, progress through the next junction will require that they have completed Natah. To start Natah, they will have to do some missions on Uranus until the lights flicker. Once this occurs, a glowing blue drone should appear somewhere, usually scanning corpses in some room. Don't sweat it if you don't find it. It may take a few missions, and if you miss it once, don't worry, you'll always be able to try again. All you have to do is one successful scan on that drone, and the Natah quest will begin as soon as you're done with that mission. Saya's Vigil should have already taught you how to use the scanner, and if you visited Cephalon Cimaris and done anything for him, you should have a second type of scanner as well. Either one works, and for the most part, the synthesis scanners from Cimaris that you will buy from him for credits, they will supplant the Codex scanner in all things. Completing Natah and the Uranus Junction will give you access to the Second Dream quest, and that is where your weapon modding will be put to the test. Some of the enemies in the Second Dream will adapt to your damage, so you should mod your weapons for different elemental damage types, and when said enemies adapt, switch your weapons and continue dealing damage. Cycle through them to kill your enemies. Now, for folks who do not want key parts of the storyline and gameplay events spoiled, they should call this a guide and be done with it. However, there's much more to go over with spoilers. And now that warning has been given to any sensitive people out there, I'm going to cover some of the better features of this game, some of the, I would argue, selling points of this game, and how to make best use of them. First and foremost, once the Second Dream quest has been completed, you'll be prompted to create your human character, known as the Operator. The Lotus will ask you what focus school you followed before you went into cryosleep. All of them are useful, however, the correct answer is Xenoric. Let me explain. While you don't actually get access to any of these trees yet, the school you pick will give you a focus lens, and when applied to a Warframe or weapon, any kills that weapon or Warframe, specifically that weapon or Warframe, make will have their affinity, the experience points that they would have gotten, converted into focus points for that focus tree. So say you get a Vazarin lens and you put it on your Excalibur, and then he makes kills with your Excalibur powers. That'll give you Vazarin focus points. If you put on a weapon, kills made with that weapon only will give you focus points. But let's say I didn't use it on that weapon. Instead, I used it on the Excalibur. While that weapon was equipped but not used, it would earn less or no focus at all. So applying the focus lens on something that won't make kills, bad idea. Now, while you are playing with a Warframe or a weapon that has a focus lens equipped, these orbs will randomly appear in your overlay. And it'll blink and make a noise to indicate you need to go over there. You pick up the orb, and a countdown will appear on your screen. Any kills you make during that time will give you bonus focus. Now, once applied, a focus lens is consumed. The item disappears from your inventory. If you apply a new lens to that item, it will overwrite the old one. Other lenses can be gotten by doing bounties in the Cetus open world area on some of the higher level bounties. But you can only get the lenses that the bounty board decides are on offer at that moment. You'll be able to see it in the offerings list before you accept the bounty. The point is, A focus lens is a limited item for getting focus points, and you're going to want the Xeneric one. Now, I am currently mostly a user of Vazarin in most of my Warframe loadouts. I enjoy this tree immensely, but it isn't the best one for new players. Now, next tree, melee users tend to favor Naramon, as it preserves the combo counter when you aren't necessarily doing a combo. It will cause it to deplete slowly, as opposed to having your melee combos disappear all at once. Also, Naramon will allow you to execute people who are aware of you as if it were a stealth kill. Next tree, Madarai, boosts your overall damage per second and allows you to do some pretty amazing burst DPS. Next tree, Unaru, does a mixture of things. Makes your Warframe a little tankier, lets you buff operator damage, lets you cripple enemy armor and the enemy damage, and lets you cloak allies. Basically, it does a little bit of everything and is great for team play. But final tree, Xeneric, is best for new players. The first node in Xeneric, the one at the very beginning, takes energy orbs you pick up and gives you bonus energy over time in addition to that energy orb standard effect. The second node you'll get is Energizing Dash, where the operator can create a zone that rapidly restores energy while you're in that zone. And 30 seconds after you leave it, for those 30 seconds, you will continue to get energy. Now, you'll need to deactivate your Exalted Blade or any other channeled abilities if you want to work. But when you're running on empty or near empty, being able to restore your energy whenever you want without having to worry about an energy orb dropping is an amazing tool for almost every Warframe in the game. Now, unless you're using the Supra, with the Parent Sequence Augment, which gives you bursts of energy, or you're using a Warframe that is expertly modded, or you're using a very difficult to get enhancement called Arcane Energize, unless you're doing one of those things, then Xeneric is the singular best way to deal with your energy. Now, there are frames that do not need Xeneric. Anaros is so tanky that he just puts a energy when damage taken mod, and he just fills up on energy and heals himself. Necros can use a mod called Equilibrium to restore his energy whenever he gets health, which is all the time if he uses the Despoil augment. Or Garuda, who can hurt herself to produce energy and then drain the health of enemies to heal up, somewhat similar to Anaros' strategy. But for the majority of Warframes, having access to an endless flow of energy for a relatively new player who doesn't have the best combos of mods, doesn't have the best weapons or frames or arcanes, Xeneric's just the way to go. Again, while you can't access this focus tree directly yet, you can start gathering focus points right away after the second dream. That lens lets you jump right into stockpiling those points. You will have a cap per day that goes up with your mastery rank. Anyway, once you finish the second dream, the moon Lua opens, and you can do challenge rooms in various missions on Lua to get Exilus mods that will fit into your Warframe's Exilus slot, that slot next to your aura. That slot has to be unlocked on a per Warframe basis, and you get one Exilus adapter to unlock the slot automatically when you complete Natah. But further ones have to be crafted from a single-use blueprint that you buy from Cephalon Cimaris for reputation, which is why I'd recommend you get in good with Cephalon Cimaris and start using his scanners, because those give you reputation. Now, the most popular Exilus mods from Lua include plus 15% power range and plus 15% power strength from Cunning Drift and Power Drift respectively. There are several more drift mods on Lua to check out though, and they all come from challenge rooms. Now, aside from Lua, you can pick up Octavia's Anthem quest from your quest's codex on your ship if you want more Second Dream storyline. Or, alternatively, you can continue planet hopping through Neptune and Pluto. Additionally, players who have yet to open any Orokin vaults at the Orokin Derelict should look into vault running. There are many specialized mods one can get by running vaults, mostly ones that decrease one stat and increase another stat. These are great for creating specialized builds. For example, Warframe builds that really buff the hell out of one skill at the expense of other skills. You can become an extremely specialized Warframe. Now, you can actually start doing vault runs pretty much at any time in your progression, but at this point, around Neptune, Pluto, you should really be a high enough level with enough mods under your belt to handle them. And again, if you are struggling, there is no harm in going back to previous areas, doing some open world bounties, or otherwise just replaying other missions to get your levels up. Now, if you want to do the Orokin Derelict, the mission keys are created by reusable blueprints that can be purchased at the market terminal for credits. The vaults themselves, inside of the Orokin Derelict missions, require dragon keys. And those dragon keys, their reusable blueprints, can be researched at an Orokin lab in the clan dojo. Now, on Orokin Derelict missions that are not defense, you will find a hidden door somewhere in that mission. It might be very well hidden, or it might be in plain sight. It might be at the beginning of the level. It might be close to the end of the level. But it will correspond to one of the 4 dragon keys in the game. It's random which dragon key it is. It's random where it is in the level. Now, each dragon key you have equipped on your gear wheel at the same time will debuff you in some way. So it does pay to split the load with other players, but it isn't necessary to split the load with other players. You can, in fact, go with all 4 keys on you at the same time and be incredibly weak. Either way, once you open up a vault door in the Orokin Derelict, simply finish the mission and extract to get a random vault item. Repeat as many times as you can for maximum results. It pays to get multiple copies of corrupted mods for Warframes, as the mods have an increase of one stat but a negative of a different stat. You want to take those to different levels so you can fine-tune exactly what the stat levels are on your Warframe. The idea is you may have one that is barely upgraded, one that is mostly upgraded, and one that is fully upgraded of the same mod, and you may want to switch those out to get your build perfect. Either way, corrupted mods or not, derelict or not, when you finish the Sedna Junction from Pluto, you will get the War Within. And the final mission of the War Within, you will gain your number 5 power. That is the ability to exit your Warframe whenever you want and act independently on foot. You can use your Void Blast as an operator on the Kuva Guardian to cause them to be stunned, dash through them to strip them of their immortality, then pop back into your Warframe and kill them before they get their immortality back. Remember this technique, because you will be using it later. This quest will not be the only time you encounter these guys from now on. The first thing you'll want to do upon finishing the War Within is to go back to Cetus on Earth, the town. From where Kanzu is standing, follow this path over to the side, go up to this doorway and exit your Warframe, and it will open for your operator. Speak to the Quill, and he will give you an amp, which is an operator weapon with its own ammo pool that is separate from your void energy. The amp will be able to kill those creatures on the Cetus open world that come out at night. This enables Eidolon hunting, a way to get even more focus, as well as various arcane enhancements and cores used to raise your Quill's reputation. At night, you can talk to Kanzu and queue up for the Eidolon hunts, although these are usually considered an end-game activity and require a high level of either practice, coordination, or both. Separate guides do exist out there on how to fight Eidolons. I won't be covering the how to fight Eidolons here, only why, and we'll talk about that later. Either way, as your Quill's reputation goes up, you'll be able to craft better and more powerful amps, that is, operator weapons. Amps come in 3 components. They are modular. You'll be able to get a prism, a scaffold, and a brace, and then combine them at the Quills. The prism is the primary attack. The scaffold is your alt-fire attack, usually bound to your middle mouse button. The meta for your scaffold is the Tier 2, or Shirok's Sun. The brace buffs the whole thing in one of several different ways. The current meta for the brace is the Sorties, and it's Tier 7. It doesn't even come from the quills, it comes from the quills variant, known as Vox Solaris, Little Duck, who's in Fortuna. Either way, it is largely agreed that the prism doesn't matter when Eidolon hunting, because you'll really only be using the alt-fire scaffold attack, the flak blasts. Now, much like regular weapons, each prism has its own mastery experience points that it can give you toward your mastery rank. So it pays to craft, level, and guild each amp with a separate prism until you've leveled all of the prisms. Now, in addition to getting an amp, your operator will get more health and unlock the ability to use your focus tree. You know, that thing you got the lens for? Now, you can spend those focus points. Finishing the War Within will also unlock a new area known as the Kuva Fortress, which brings with it a rare resource called Kuva, used in the rerolling of Riven mods. Riven mods are obtained from certain quests, specific events, even Twitch drops for developer live streams, and most commonly, they come from ultra high-level missions that come in sets of 3 called Sorties that become available toward the middle to end of your progression. Riven mods are for random weapons and have randomized stats. You can consume Kuva to re-randomize the stats on them. Now, Rivens have a disposition on them based on the percentage of the player base using the weapons in question. The less players who use this weapon, the more powerful the Riven's potential. The more popular the weapon, the less powerful the Riven's potential. You can still have a great Riven for a very popular weapon, but it will be innately inferior to a really good Riven for a weapon that is less popular. Now, if a weapon becomes more or less popular later, dispositions are adjusted periodically, and so your Rivens may become more or less powerful over time. Still have the same stats, but the amount that those stats influence is reduced. Now, these active adjustments occur every few months to allow various off-meta weapons to be usable at a decent level. In practice, this angers people when their meta weapon gets its Riven nerfed. But in reality, it's working as intended, and I love it. Now, the Kuva Fortress itself travels around the star map and populates new Kuva variants of normal missions temporarily while it's in the neighborhood. Now, Kuva missions are identical to the normal mission, except there's also a Kuva siphon in the level. It will summon Kuva clouds to it. You can look at the siphon itself and there will be a hanging tube, and the tube will get sucked in the direction of the cloud. Before the cloud reaches the siphon, you have to use your operator to either dash through or shoot the Kuva cloud with your amp, and the Kuva cloud will explode, destroying one of the tubes that sucks Kuva in. When you destroy all the tubes by destroying the Kuva clouds that are sucked onto it, you will be rewarded with Kuva at the end of the mission. For every planet that has Kuva missions, there are a few normal Kuva missions and one level 100 Kuva flood that rewards a lot of Kuva. The Kuva resource is also used to build certain weapons and warframes, but mostly consumed to reroll Rivens to change the stats on them. The first reroll costs 900 Kuva, and each roll costs more, capping out at 3,500 Kuva per reroll after 9. If you enjoy Kuva missions just for enjoying Kuva missions, you will have tons and tons of Kuva by the time you have a Riven to reroll. If you don't, you may struggle to get enough Kuva to reroll once to repeat. It all depends on how you approach it. Now, after the War Within is complete, Ordis, that is your ship's computer, he will give you a personal quarters segment and let you build a new room in your orbiter. The next quest after the War Within is the Chains of Harrow, and it can be accessed from your ship codex under quests after the War Within is done. Now, after you've finished the Chains of Harrow, if you visit your personal quarters, there will be a floating orb, assuming you're not in a group. If you're in a group, there won't be an orb. When you touch that orb, you will start the Apostasy Prologue. Once the Prologue is complete, the Sacrifice will appear in your codex, and the Sacrifice is a quest line which will unlock a new Warframe, which is a direct upgrade to to Excalibur, and leads directly into the Chimera Prologue the next time you visit your personal quarters. The Chimera Prologue will give you a blueprint for Paracesis, a sword that gets stronger for each forma that is placed into it. At 5 forma, it will gain 10 extra levels, becoming a level 40 weapon in a game where level 30 is the max level for weapons. From there, congratulations, you are caught up to present day when this video was made. The only thing left to do is complete every node on the star map. Doing so will unlock arbitration alerts, which are ultra high level missions that only feature endless mission types, like defense, interception, survival, excavation. These missions feature no bleed out, but rather instant death when your health hits 0. Mission rewards gathered during arbitrations stay if you leave the mission after your death, but item drops that you picked up will only be gathered if you stay until the mission actually ends, provided it is successful. If everyone in the mission dies and it is a mission failed, then you only get the mission rewards and not the drops. Each arbitration alert picks a random warframe and a random weapon on a per-player basis and enhances the weapon damage and the power strength of the warframe by 300%, encouraging you to use many different weapons and warframes. Note that it is optional to use these enhanced powers. You don't have to. It's entirely up to you what you want to go into an arbitration with. Now, once you've unlocked arbitrations, congratulations, you have officially hit the end game of Warframe. In addition to arbitrations, the main things to do in the end game are the daily high-level sortie missions that come in packs of 3. Once you finish those 3, you get a reward, and then you repeat the process the next day. They're like daily quests almost. There is Relic Cracking, of course. You've gained tons of relics, doing tons of missions, filling out the star map. Time to crack some of those in Fissure missions, which are variants on normal missions where corrupted enemies spawn, and those corrupted enemies drop reactant. You use the reactant in order to crack the relic open. When the mission is done, you cash in on whatever was inside the relic. Think of it as opening loot boxes through gameplay instead of paying. The final really high-level game mode you can play is called Elite Sanctuary Onslaught, which requires that you have completed a quest called the New Strange in order to play it. It's kind of an endurance mode where you have to kill enemies as quickly as possible, and it caters to very specific warframes. In addition to all of that, we have the earlier mentioned Eidolon hunts, and if you do successfully hunt Eidolons, you will get Arcanes for your warframe. Enhancements in a slot that shows up on your upgrade screen only for Mastery Rank 5 or above. I highly recommend looking at a dedicated Tridolon capture guide, which is the community's word for the 3 Eidolon types you will fight in a row. The Derelict drops decent Arcanes, but the Gauntletist has a chance to drop Arcane Guardian. If you get 10 Arcane Guardians and upgrade them together, you will create a single max rank that will make any warframe in the game more tanky. Now, the Hydralist, it can drop Arcane Energize, which when maxed out will completely replace your need for Xeneric on energy-hungry builds. The difference in gameplay quality between having these Arcanes and not having these Arcanes is colossal. These Arcanes, at this time, cannot be purchased directly with platinum. You can trade other players for them, and that's how you could potentially get thousands of platinum by selling these things, but there is no way to buy it from the company. Now, as mentioned earlier, sentient cores that you get from Eidolons will increase your Quill's reputation. The Quills will allow you to get Operator Suit Arcanes. The recommended Arcane is Arcane Elevate. When fully leveled, entering your warframe, that is after you've exited your warframe, you pop back into it, it has a 75% chance of healing your warframe. So hit the 5 button rapidly and watch as your warframe is healed at no cost to you. Finally, the last set of Arcanes you should look at are from the Vox Solaris reputation. Advancing in Vox Solaris requires items you get from Profit Taker bounties, which means you need to max out Solaris United before you can do this. So Solaris United, Vox Solaris, and the Arcanes. Vox Solaris has two very important arcanes. The first is Magus Repair. If you duck with your operator, you crouch, you go into void mode. You become invisible and invincible. While you're in that mode, it will repair any Warframes in range by 20% per second, including your own. So in a matter of seconds, your Warframe is fully healed. This is superior to Magus Elevate in the sense that you don't have to spam 5. It has a 100% chance of working, as opposed to Elevate 75% chance per spam. And you're invulnerable while crouching, so you don't have to worry about getting downed while you're trying to heal. You spend void energy while you are crouching in void mode. Not a lot of it, and it does regenerate fast, but still, the void mode has a limit, as opposed to Elevate, which costs you nothing other than time spamming 5. When people want healing, they'd bring an Oberon frame, or they'd bring a Trinity frame, or they'd bring a Harrow frame, or even a Gara with her augment. One of these frames to be a healer. But Magus Repair lets you bring any frame, even like a pure DPS or tank frame, and it lets your operator take care of the healing. In a similar sense, I recommend Magus Lockdown, which also comes from Vox Solaris. When slotted into the operator's suit, doing a Void Dash at the point where the Void Dash ends causes a tether mine to appear. It will bind any enemies in range for 4 seconds. Then it will explode for 60% of their life as puncture damage. I really don't care about the explosion or the puncture damage. It's all about locking down the enemies for 4 seconds. They're effectively asleep for that period of time, giving you time to kill them or crowd control them or get away. Whatever you need to do. It allows the operator to take on the role of crowd control, at least for a limited extent. Just as Repair allows the operator to take on the role of healer. This greatly enhances your options in a fight, because the operator can become part of your play style. And for now, that's about it. The great thing about Warframe is a lot of the stuff in the game wasn't in the game a year ago. And a year from now, we'll see a lot of stuff added to the game, I imagine. There are countless playstyles, countless Warframes, countless weapons, and mods for those Warframes weapons. But everyone agrees that the real endgame for Warframe is Fashion Frame. And Fashion Frame is pay to win. The reason Fashion Frame is pay to win is because there are brand new 10th-gen cosmetic items coming out every month or two on PC. Far faster than they can come out on the console versions due to licensing issues. 10th-gen on the PC is a direct profit share with the people who made those cosmetic items. They are paid mods in the game. Paid mods done right. Paid mods that are curated by the company. Paid mods that give a profit share. Just saying, suck on that, Bethesda. Now, if you've made it this far, you should now know a vast majority of what Warframe has to offer and how to go about progressing in it. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover in this, I highly recommend Googling that question, checking the wiki, seeing if YouTube has any videos on it. That's pretty much how you find out things about Warframe, because despite making this awesome game I have tons of fun with, the developers are pretty garbage at explaining things. Whether you're a free-to-play player, a whale, a casual, or a hardcore player, Warframe probably has something for you if you're into this kind of grindy game, because the grind is the point and purpose of it. If you don't enjoy the gameplay and find yourself just trying to get bigger numbers and not having fun while you do, you're chasing the horizon, then you're playing the game for the wrong reasons and you should probably quit. Now, I'm going to be doing some videos that are somewhat critical of Warframe, kind of in the vein of what if Skyrim was good. I'll call them like Warframe missed opportunity, and then whatever the topic is. I figured before I do that, I'd evangelize the game a little and show support to members of my community who have told me they just couldn't figure the game out. This video is a response to people who just couldn't figure stuff out and needed a newbie guide, and they asked me for it, which they have. If you can find Warframe enjoyable now, thanks to this guide, great. And if you still can't, well, it was kind of fun making this video. So thank you for watching. Check the links on screen for more content, and I'll see y'all soon. Y'all have a good one now.
We cannot let our target know we're here. Track them down quickly. That was a juggernaut.